And we are back, still separate. Tim, you're close to the fire out there.
Yeah.
All good? Smoky air, I think you were saying?
Yeah, the smoke is back. Look, it's not like it was, I don't know, whatever it was a week or so ago, that whole Mars escape, real particulate matter in the air. Not that, but I can smell the smoke again. They say that they've beat it back from Mount Wilson, the Mount Wilson Observatory, dear to our heart, plus the transmitter for our radio station, KPCC 81.3, is on that mountain. They beat it back from that. But it's still problematic. Kind of burning the other way, but the wind blows. The wind blows.
Right. Well, for a change, and not necessarily a good change, but for a change, you're closer to the fire than I am. It's usually
always the other way around.
It's always the other way around. Well, welcome our listeners back. We're lining up some fun stuff on these odd weeks, these peculiar recording weeks. And next week we got a couple of authors we're going to be talking to, and the next one is going to be Paul Benedict Rowan, who is the author of Making Ryan's Daughter, an amazing book about the making of David Lean's second to last film from 1970. Soon to enjoy its 50th anniversary on November 9th. That was the anniversary. That will be the 50th anniversary of its premiere. Kind of a legendary film because it's another one of those Burden of Dreams, Fitzcarraldo-y, Apocalypse Now, Hearts of Darkness kind of just everything went wrong. I still love the film, but what a great book. So I had a great hour-long chat with Paul Benedict Rowan, who is a very distinguished Irish journalist. We're going to have that posted a few days after this podcast as an entirely separate show, and then we got another author that we're going to be talking to shortly thereafter. So we're trying to mix it up and keep things interesting during this very unusual time. Also had a bit of news. Tim, what do you feel about the Emmys, the virtual Emmys that were so low rated nobody watched them?
Well, look, it was a tough thing to sort of pull off. Watched a good chunk of it myself. All right, I did, which was unusual for me. Usually, I don't watch the Emmys, but because it was as it is this time, I went ahead and watched a good chunk of the Emmys. I appreciate the winners. I appreciate the programming, the shows that actually won Emmys. The show itself, the Emmy show itself, I could have lived without that. Yeah. Is what it is. But what else? What the heck else are you going to do? I don't know if these things are just going to work. And I don't know what the Academy Awards should take from this, but I just don't know.
I don't either.
Things are going to work. In the Golden Globes, forget about it. The whole point of the Golden Globes is to get all those actors in that room, get them all soused up on liquor,
exactly.
Those tables, and have them go off. That's the whole point of the Golden Globes.
So here's the question about the Emmys. I mean, first question: Watchmen, totally deserving. I think a lot of people saw that coming. Does that fix things for DC? Does that mean that DC has gotten the Marvel monkey off its back?
Well, it means this. DC, there is a universe in which the purveyors of DC can construct a narrative that's captivating, that lives in the DC universe and gives us those gifts. That exists. It doesn't prove anything about what they can do, in terms of the featured universe. But it exists. It's something that they can pull off. They can do it. Of course, that Watchmen. The reason why that Watchmen was so good is because it really only used the broadest possible context of the Watchmen series, both the movie and that book, that graphic novel, in the broadest possible way. The content, that was just all context, Adrian Veidt and all that. The content was content of the moment. Content that's pure Damien Lindelof and whatnot. So let's just say that instead of that having been the Watchmen, it had been one of the Superman narratives or something, and they had put that content into a different context. You'd have still had a hit series because it's the content that was speaking to us,
Did you now on the comedy side? Did you see the Schitt's Creek sweep coming?
I never got that. I'm sorry, I just never got it.
I don't either. That's the one that just perplexed me. I mean, no, obviously good on them. No offense to them, but that got a sweep, a first time comedy sweep that eluded everything from Mary Tyler Moore to All in the Family and the Jeffersons and Cosby and Friends and Cheers and Frasier. I mean, you can go right down the line of all of the legendary Taxi.
Mm-hmm.
You can go right down the line to all the legendary half-hour sitcoms that have made history. Golden Girls. And none of them did that. Does Schitt's Creek really belong in that class and along with those?
Well, every one of those shows that you just mentioned are shows that if they had won Emmys, I'd have been like right on. Of course, and frankly, most of those shows I just want to be clear. Most of the shows that you just mentioned, if you had asked me, I would have thought had won Emmys. For best comedy. So I just can't see it now. Like I said. Really? I gave Schitt's Creek a little run, and it was like, and so it's not like I hung in there or anything with it. So did it get that much better? I don't know, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think this has more to do with a dearth of really good comedy on television these days, frankly. But there it is. And then we unfortunately did. Well, first I should also say our little Oscar shortlisted short Refugee, which has yet to make its big appearance online or in a form that everybody can see it, but we'll do that soon. Was a big winner at the second annual French Riviera Film Festival, which is actually not on the French Riviera; it's in Beverly Hills, but it's called the French Riviera Film Festival. But we scored Best Drama, Best Director, and Best Actress. Very happy for Bran Anderson, our writer-director, and for Yasmin Al-Masri, our star, and obviously for the rest of us. So we're very excited about that.
And a well-deserving award. So three awards.
Nice.
So 3 awards. So that's
three awards. 3 awards, more than anything has ever won in 2 years.
Where will people be able to see that film eventually? And there are a number of places now. Between these shows, what's going to happen?
That should be sorted out in the next month or so. We are there are a couple other festivals that we are that we've applied to that we're in. We'll see what happens with those, but I think by year's end, we'll definitely have that shaken out, and it'll have some kind of formal distribution, on its own. So we'll keep everybody abreast of that. And then we lost 3 people this week. We lost Michael Lonsdale, the great French character actor, most famous for playing Drax in Moonraker, one of the most subdued Bond villains. And Michael Chapman, the legendary director of cinematographer, most famous for his work on Raging Bull, which just is epic. And then in a kind of a sideways step, the great football running back Gale Sayers, who oddly enough was obviously famous as an athlete in his day, but has become more famous because of the movie Brian Song, maybe the first great television movie in history, which just had you and I were talking before the show. I mean, I think millions of people never realized how much they could cry at a TV movie until they saw Brian Song.
Yeah, Gale Sayers quit playing football. I don't know, about 1971, 72, something like that. I was a football fan growing up in St. Louis Cardinals. So I'm sure that somewhere in the late 60s, early 70s, I laid eyes on Gale Sayers playing Jim Hart and the boys. But I don't know that I remember that in my head. But of course, that movie, you and I both, I literally remember watching that movie on the evening that it aired, made for television movie. Billy D. Williams, Jimmy Caan playing Brian Piccolo. And I think that this is a movie where we can all agree that the guys all over America cried. We just cried like a baby for that movie. It was just a beautifully, beautifully rendered movie about these two men.
And it was if you think about it, it was really a landmark risk at the time. It was not just, you're taking a true story. First of all, let's remember it is a true story, and that friendship is remarkable and it's tragic. And Gale Sayers as an athlete was the closest thing that I think the gridiron has ever had to a Gene Kelly. He was a dancer and an acrobat the way that he would run. But this is, after all, 1971, a television movie about a male friendship.
Yeah, bromance. And the term bromance doesn't even exist yet.
And a cross-racial bromance. It's pushing all kinds of buttons, race buttons, sexuality buttons, and all of that stuff that in 1971 is still a bit touchy, why would ABC take the risk and not do something? Well, because they took a risk, you know, and God bless them for doing it, and it paid off because it is the movie that changed television movies. It said, you know, if you have a great story, you're not slumming it. If you make it into a TV movie, you're going to reach a wider audience faster, and you're going to have more people sharing the experience across the entire continent. It was quite a sea change, and Brian's song is still works, man. It still works.
Yeah, classic filmmaking.
It is.
So anyway, yeah, Gale Sayers. Of course, Gale played with the Chicago Bears, which is direct and specific nemesis of the St. Louis Cardinals. So I certainly saw him play. I must have, but I probably never actually cheered for him. Anyway, go get.
Well, it's worth watching that movie again just to pay tribute to the great Gale Sayers, a great athlete and a great human being.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off here and blow through some Kino titles. We've got just a ton of great Kinos, and I've had a chance to really kind of sit and check a few of them out. And here we go. We're going to start off with the Cary Grant collection. They're doing these wonderful box sets lately. We've covered a lot of them, 3 films in a box set. And this one has Big Brown Eyes, Wedding Present, and Ladies Should Listen. None of these are super memorable among the A-list Cary Grant titles. But you know what? They're really fun. And he starts with Joan Bennett in 2 of them, Wedding Present and Big Brown Eyes. Joan Bennett, wonderful actress, totally underrated at the time. And then he's with Frances Drake in Ladies Should Listen. Another totally underrated leading lady. Really fun films. Again, you know, if you don't want to watch one of the A-list titles that everybody already knows, that's a really fun one. George Axelrod's Lord Love a Duck with Roddy McDowall and Tuesday Weld. What a trip this is. This is a total 1960s throwback piece. Really kind of cool and beatniky. And, you know, George Axelrod, of course, wrote things like Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter and Breakfast at Tiffany's, The Manchurian Candidate. I mean, he was a guy who was very much in the mix in that time. And this has a lot of really fun throwback vibes to it. I mean, it's funny, it's eccentric. Ruth Gordon shows up in this thing along with Harvey Korman. A lot of great supporting talent, and you know, it's just a really great satire on all of the kind of beatniky overkill of the era. It's a good fun movie. Ruth Gordon is especially good. So Lord Love a Duck on Blu-ray. These are all on Blu-ray, by the way. And a little bit along the lighter lines from roughly the same era, from a year earlier, 1965, is The Art of Love, which is a great early Norman Jewison film with a terrific cast. James Garner, Dick Van Dyke, Elke Sommer, and Angie Dickinson. How do you beat that?
You do not.
Oh, it's just so much fun. It is, of course, you know, one of those mid-60s, late 60s kind of sexual satire comedy farces. And Norman Jewison, of course, is very good with comedy, and he's very good with a light touch. The best thing about this, though, we should point out, is who wrote it. Written by Carl Reiner.
Yes.
Terrific Carl Reiner. And this also has an audio commentary by film historian Peter Tonguette, which is very insightful. Really fun movie. Then we have Spawn of the North with George Raft, Henry Fonda, and Dorothy Lamour. This is kind of a good old-fashioned adventure movie in inclement conditions, shot in 1938. Feels a little bit more like a film from the 1940s. But directed by Henry Hathaway, who of course did tons of great westerns and a lot of great adventure films. And it's about a fisherman who kind of turns into Dirty Harry in a way. Seriously, it kind of is. You know, it's basically a western, but it's set in in like the fishermen in the north where the fishermen really go after the salmon in Alaska. It's pretty great. Spawn of the North. Also got The Ghost Breakers, kind of a minor Bob Hope effort, but it's still fun. Bob Hope and Paulette Goddard, directed by George Marshall. Good. It's really fun. It again, not one of the top tier Bob Hope movies, but from 1940, it's certainly got a lot of great laughs in it. Really well worth checking out. Cat and the Canary is kind of also a favorite. That's another Bob Hope movie with Paulette Goddard, directed by Elliot Nugent. Also kind of in the same general vicinity, made the year before. Audio commentary here by Lee Gambin. Again, these movies you're watching basically for Bob Hope just showing off and doing his shtick. The plot here is actually quite funny. The it's one of these inheritance plots, which usually wind up being thrillers or Agatha Christie stories, and in this case, it's played purely for laughs. Like Brewster's Millions is another one that it kind of follows along the same lines, but this is there's a whole haunted mansion thing. It's really very, very funny. So check it out, Cat and the Canary. A lot of great laughs. Kind of in a way, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of all of those. I've been showing my daughter all of these, all of the Looney Tunes shorts with Sylvester and Porky Pig in the haunted houses.
Yeah,
which always kill me. Where Porky, nothing ever affects Porky, but Sylvester's losing his mind because there are these mice that are it's too funny. It's great stuff. James Cagney and Shirley Jones did a really great fun bit in Never Steal Anything Small. That's from 1959. James Cagney getting a little bit older and more seasoned here. Ruben Mullion directed this, who is famous for doing Becky Sharp, the first 3-strip Technicolor feature film. And this is technically Cagney's final musical performance, and he still can do it. He can still really turn it on. The story is a little bit weird. It's kind of about unionization. It's kind of like on the waterfront, except with songs in a way. It's a little bit of a peculiar story, but nonetheless, it's got some moments. Let's get into Disputed Passage, which is Dorothy Lamour kind of holding it down without any significant male co-stars that anybody would notice. This is directed by Frank Borzage from 1939, a year where everything was overshadowed by all of the big films. This is kind of a second-tier film, has a great commentary by Nick Pinkerton on it. And it's it's a bit of a melodrama. It's obviously not really in keeping with the times to have Dorothy Lamour play Chinese, which she does here. If you can get over the yellow face, which at the time, mind you, was not controversial, but looking at it through modern eyes you'll roll your eyes, because Dorothy Lamour clearly is not Asian and should not play Asian. But it does have kind of some good, well-intentioned undertones that are very much about tolerance, and then it drifts into a little bit of science fiction. But if you're a Dorothy Lamour fan, you might want to check it out. Disputed Passage. Barbara Stanwyck, directed by Douglas Sirk, in All I Desire. This is really just a straight-up Stanwyck vehicle. You get all of the information you need from the commentary here by Imogen Sarah Smith, who really lays out all the Stanwickian elements that make this absolutely fantastic. Douglas Sirk, of course, the godfather of melodrama. And it's about a woman effectively trying to redeem herself from past scandal. Barbara Stanwyck playing this stage actress, and she has to go home again. And it's one of those things, how do you go home again when scandal has followed you? Can you find redemption? Great supporting performances here. Maureen O'Sullivan is particularly really good. There's Always Tomorrow, also with Barbara Stanwyck, except this time she's back with her Double Indemnity co-star Fred McMurray, and of course Joan Bennett, who's showing up in all kinds of stuff. This also directed by Douglas Sirk. This is a bit of a more famous one. This has Sam Dean doing the audio commentary, and an excellent one. And this is just absolutely superb. I think this is one of Douglas Sirk's best films. I'm thrilled that it's on Blu-ray. Sorry that it doesn't have more extras on it. This one kind of feels like it deserves a really great special edition. But if you love McMurray and Stanwyck and Double Indemnity, they are just as good here, even if the movie isn't quite as famous. Remember Richard Farnsworth and The Gray Fox?
Oh, Richard.
Gosh, so good.
Of course, Richard
My wife,
most known for that David Lynch film that
the Straight Story,
was that his last
Straight
film?
Story, yeah, Straight Story, which my wife worked on,
I thought
and
that, yeah.
yeah, and anyway, the film that really kind of put him on the map as an actor, because he used to be a stuntman and a bit player and all that stuff. The film that really put him on the map was Philip Borsos's The Gray Fox, and really an extraordinary story, based on fact, about a guy who had spent basically the better part of the last third of the 19th century in San Quentin.
Mm.
And at the beginning of the 20th century, he now has to sort of step out of prison as an old man and into a new world that he's not necessarily prepared for. It's a really beautiful, poetic movie. I mean, this is a guy who was like a Western robber, and now he's has to find his place in a new industrial world. It's it's quite extraordinary, and it still really really holds up. And I can't recommend that highly enough. A lot of extras here. Alex Cox, the filmmaker who doesn't make films anymore, does an audio commentary, which is really good, like most of his recent commentaries. There's also a couple of interviews and a featurette about the restoration of the film, which is quite beautiful. Hell Bent is an old John Ford film starring Harry Cary. This is from 1918, when John Ford was just plying his trade, really learning how to make movies during the silent era. And Harry Cary was not yet the sort of iconic figure that he would eventually be. It's not a great silent western. It's only 53 minutes long, but I recommend it because it has a really, really wonderful 1970 audio interview with John Ford by our former LAFCA colleague and a good friend of ours who was all over our documentary schlock, Joe McBride, who wrote the John Ford book, Searching for John Ford. Joe also does the audio commentary on this thing. So in terms of giving you a good dose of film history, Hell Bent with Harry Cary gives you a lot of Joe McBride, and a lot of Joe McBride is an education in film.
Yep, boy.
Let me get through a few more here. I'm going to hit these three Agatha Christie titles because Kenneth Branagh is shooting his follow-up to Death on the Nile, his next Agatha Christie film, following up Murder on the Orient Express, and so that should be coming out at some point. Meanwhile, we have three Agatha Christie films here that are all quite fun. Death on the Nile and The Evil Under the Sun, both of which have Peter Ustinov playing the part of Poirot. And I actually quite like both of these. I like Ustinov as Poirot. I think there are some great commentaries on here with Howard Berger, Steve Mitchell, and Nathaniel Thompson. They do both of them. They're making of featurettes. And there's an interview with Ustinov and an interview with Jane Birkin on Death on the Nile. They've been really nicely transferred. They look great. All-star casts. You can't beat it. Peter Ustinov is the star though. And then Guy Hamilton, a director best known for his Bond films, did The Mirror Cracked, Agatha Christie's The Mirror Cracked in 1980, which is the movie that cast Angela Lansbury as Miss Marple. And from that grew Murder, She Wrote, which, of course, is not Miss Marple, but it's Angela Lansbury basically doing Miss Marple on TV. And The Mirror Cracked is also very, very popular. This has a great all-star cast. Edward Fox, Elizabeth Taylor, Tony Curtis, Kim Novak, Rock Hudson, Geraldine Chaplin. Just doesn't get any better than that. And Guy Hamilton directs the daylights out of it. So another really, really fun Agatha Christie bit. Tim, do you remember Hollywoodland?
Hollywood.
Does that?
I remember. I mean, I know what it represents. Which movie is that?
This is from 14 years ago. This is 2006, and this thing came and went. I had totally forgotten it existed. It was originally a Miramax film, and I think it's somehow at some point
Brody Ben Affleck movie.
That's the one. I had completely forgotten this existed. Didn't recollect a thing about it. I remember I had seen it at the time. Took a look at it again. It's not bad. I mean, it's 1950s Los Angeles. It's kind of a modern noir. It's kind of trying to do what the noirs of the 50s did. It isn't really in the same vein as something like, say,
George Reeves. Of course, George Reeves, who played the original Superman.
Exactly.
That was what was funny about it, because Ben Affleck,
when they found him dead,
Affleck was going to go on to play Superman.
Exactly. This is basically a 50 style noir, a LA Confidential style noir, all centered around the very, very scandalous death of George Reeves, who, of course, playing Superman on TV at the time was squeaky clean. And then, when he's found dead, was it a suicide? Oh, maybe not. Maybe the suicide is a cover story. So now you got to put together what really happened to him, and it's actually quite good. I don't know how much of this is factual. I don't know how much of it is really embellished, but it's actually not bad. And Ben Affleck wound up getting a Golden Globe nomination for playing Reeves.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting that Ben Affleck played the guy who played Superman, and then went on to play Daredevil and then Batman.
Yeah.
I kind of find that fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating. Good casting. Diane Lane, Bob Hoskins in that movie. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'd forgotten about it, and I don't know why it didn't sort of stick. I guess it just kind of fell between the cracks at some point. Let me grab a few others here. The Balcony, directed by Joseph Strick, another really kind of shortchanged '60s classic here. I really like this. The balcony of the title, of course, is a brothel. And this is getting a little more edgy. In the 1960s, they were less afraid of sort of tackling these things.
Shelley Winters.
Shelley Winters. This is based on a Jean Genet play. And that means, Jean Genet, of course, one of the more scandalous French playwrights of the avant-garde period, kind of really nailed it. There's a very young Leonard Nimoy here, pre-Star Trek.
Yeah.
Shelley Winters just chews up the scenery in the most delicious way possible. Great supporting parts from Peter Falk and Lee Grant, and Ruby Dee is absolutely wonderful here as well.
Yeah.
Really very interesting, and some fantastic music by Stravinsky really sets the tone. Definitely worth checking out. Really worth checking out. Beautifully made. Sign of the Cross from 1932 is an early sound Cecil B. DeMille biblical epic. It's rough, it's dated, but it is historically significant. And here again, the reason for watching this one from 1932 is for the commentaries on it. It has a commentary by David Del Valle, who is a film historian, and by Mark Vieira, who basically wrote the book on Cecil B. DeMille. So if this is really just about getting background on the film and DeMille and so forth, even if the movie itself isn't terribly great.
That movie had been made 5 times even before DeMille made it in 32.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's one of the all-time most filmed stories, and Jesus movies already get filmed a lot. I got a couple of Doctor Who movies here, Tim. I know you're gonna be thrilled with these from 1965 and 1966. Doctor Who and the Daleks, and the Daleks Invasion Earth, 2150 A.D. Both of these have Peter Cushing playing Doctor Who, which, directed by Gordon Fleming. I find that just so fascinating, because I had never seen either of these. I think I knew in the back of my head that Peter Cushing had been Doctor Who at one point, cinematically.
Yeah.
But really an interesting thing. I mean, they compare very favorably with all the stuff that was on television and everything that's been made since.
It would have been after William Hartnell had played the Doctor, in the early 60s, I think 62, 63. So there's some dispute about if he exists in the direct canon of Doctors, and it kind of throws off the count, depending on how you want to count those things. Yeah.
Well, a lot of extras here for those who really want to just dig into it. Audio commentary heaven with film historian Kim Newman and Robert Shearman, who was a screenwriter, and also writer filmmaker Mark Gatiss. They just really 2 great commentaries. And then both of them have the same documentary, which is Dalek Mania, which is an hour-long documentary all about the Daleks and the Doctor Who world. And interviews on each, as well as restoration featurettes. So fun stuff there.
Love it.
Getting close to the bottom here. We also have Breezy with William Holden and Kay Lenz. This is from 1973. Pretty much kind of. Say again?
Couldn't make that movie today.
No, you definitely could not. This is a Clint Eastwood film. I mean, this was Clint who was pushing buttons in 1973. But yeah, this is how do we outline this without giving anything away? It's a romance,
Yeah.
and it's a really good romance. But Tim is right; you could not make this today. It's very much of the era, but it also features some of Clint's most insightful direction, and
I mean,
it's got a real
look, Kaylin's. This is extremely young Kaylin. She's a teenager in this movie. I think Kay
yeah,
is probably in her early 20s, but the character is a teenager, and she's
correct,
going after this middle-aged divorced man, William Holden. No holds barred.
yeah.
And now the movie is about this guy kind of figuring out whether or not he wants to do this. It's in that Lolita area.
It is, yeah. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but Clint somehow, who of course has his own history with these May September romances, Clint, I mean, I think he was with Sandra Locke already at that
Oh
point.
yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So there may be a little bit of sort of autobiographical stuff going on. I don't want to read too much into it, but anyway, John Cleese in Clockwise from 1986 is a blast. Cleese, of course, can hold his own without all the rest of the pythons, and he does, in fact, do that here. This is about a guy who is obsessed with punctuality, which is basically just an excuse for John Cleese to do a whole lot of absolutely crazy gags, and it's very, very funny.
We forget
Cleese just
sometimes what a
absolutely
wonderful physical comedian John Cleese is.
terrific.
He was right up there with Chevy Chase and
Yep,
Jerry Lewis and because those sort of both he and Chevy anyway are very tall and
yep.
lanky and those arms, and they would fall down, and he was not afraid to do any of that.
Nope.
While still playing a sort of upright, studious sort of British guy. I love John Cleese in that movie.
He is a lot of fun. And then Malcolm McDowell in a couple of films here, a couple of kind of British classics, one of which more famous but less accessible than the other. The first one is Brian Forbes's The Raging Moon, in which he co-stars with Nanette Newman. This is the more accessible of the two films I'm going to mention. This is from 1971. Brian Forbes, of course, did a lot of great movies, including King Rat and The Wrong Box. Really, really fun stuff. This is basically a romantic drama, which gives Malcolm McDowell a pre-Clockwork Orange chance to kind of be a little bit more normal than what he's normally expected to do. He's a guy who's been drinking too much. I don't want to give too much of it away, but there's a let's just say there's a tragedy that befalls him, and it's a bit of a mystery. And the result of that is that while he is convalescing from this unusual medical situation, something romantic happens, and it winds up being actually quite poetic and beautiful. So Brian Forbes, very, very good director. Here's the one that is a little bit more famous and inaccessible: is Britannia Hospital by Lindsay Anderson, the famous angry young man director of If and other outrageous movies. Lindsay Anderson really pulled out all the stops in Britannia Hospital, which has a great cast, by the way. Malcolm McDowell, Joan Plowright, Leonard Rossiter, also a regular from a lot of Kubrick films, Graham Croden. But Britannia Hospital is straight up insane. This is from 1982, and it's almost as insane as Clockwork Orange, though not as famous. But Lindsay Anderson, was known for pushing buttons, for going the extra mile, for kind of going overboard in many respects. If is maybe the most famous of all of those. And this is also a satire of the actual institution itself, Britannia Hospital. And it plays probably better if you're English, but even if you're not, the madness and the insanity that goes on. I mean, he basically takes a hatchet to everything, to activists, to unions, to aristocrats, to administrators, to people themselves. And all of it is in a way kind of a microcosm of the British Empire in decline. There's a lot you can read into this film. Mark Hamill shows up in here. Alan Bates. It's a hell of a crazy movie. It really is just completely from
I'm trying to
Mars.
think of it because there is serious satire in there about
Yeah.
British society. So I don't know that I would compare it to a Mad World, because there's none of that seriousness in a Mad World. But the zaniness is the same.
It's zany but bitter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, again, Angry Young Men. It's actually about something.
Yeah. And then we got a Western here. Richard Widmark and Donna Reed in Backlash by the great Western and noir director John Sturges. Look, this is just a straight up Richard Widmark, John Sturges Western from 1956. It plugs in really well with all the rest of this genre. Sam Dean does the audio commentary. There's nothing remarkable about it. It's just a rock solid Western. It's beautifully made. William Campbell plays a great gunslinger. Like one of the coolest gunslingers I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's a really, really good, solid Western, and it's really well written. And it's nicely directed.
I love Donna Reed in that movie, because you know we think about Donna Reed.
She's good,
but you know she's ballsy in that movie.
Oh, she is. Yeah, not the Donna Reed from TV. Then we got Soldier Blue, which is a bit of an unusual movie from 1970, kind of a weird 70s, 60s transitional movie, directed by Ralph Nelson. Has a really young, gorgeous Candice Bergen in this thing. I mean, she's just coming out of her own. Peter Strauss and Donald Pleasance. But is it a Western? I don't know. It thinks it's a Western. It aspires to be a Western, but it still feels kind of like a counterculture hippie movie that's using the Western environment to sort of soft pedal an anti-racism message, which fair enough. But it doesn't really feel like a Western. It kind of feels like they're trying to give you a spoonful of medicine on a cookie. And
they could all be on motorcycles instead of horses.
Exactly. They might as well be. Good commentary, though, by Howard Berger and Steve Mitchell. Then Old Boyfriends with Talia Shire and Richard Jordan. And a great appearance by Buck Henry in this as well. John Houseman also shows up along with Keith Carradine. They did a really nice remaster of this, so it doesn't look quite as dated as it might otherwise. It's from 1979. Talia Shire kind of trying to be someone other than Rocky's wife.
Yeah.
You know what?
Joan Tewksbury.
Joan Tewksbury wrote this. And directed it, but she was primarily known as a screenwriter before. And it's fine. I think Paul Schrader co-wrote this as well, or wrote the original material. Anyway, it's kind of a melodrama. It's one of those kind of woman coming to grips with the shattered pieces of her life movie. A little bit of romance. I mean, I guess you could stick it in the same vein as An Unmarried Woman. Or some of those, but it doesn't. It's not a comedy. It doesn't have the lighter touches that you might get from like a Neil Simon or from a Paul Mazursky. It's just it's basically one of those late '70s romance movies, kind of coming out of the sexual revolution and trying to make sense of the end of it. Yeah. Kind of between the sexual revolution and AIDS, when everything kind of went south. And then lastly, 4 war movies here. None of them really particularly remarkable, but all of them perfectly serviceable. From 1942, right during the war, is Wake Island. Wake Island is basically a propaganda film. It's pumping people up for the war right at the beginning of the U.S. involvement in the war. Mm-hmm. Directed, and the noteworthy thing here is directed by Mia Farrow's dad, John Farrow. That's really the reason to watch this. Has an audio commentary by Steve Mitchell, which is serviceable, just as the movie is. We also have you were saying
William Bendix.
Yeah, and William Bendix, who's always fun. Yeah. We have a World War I movie, The Eagle and the Hawk, with Frederick March and Cary Grant, also Carol Lombard and the comedy great Jack Oakey. It's not all quiet on the Western Front, but it's okay. It's 1933, and it sees that there is probably another war on the horizon in 1933. So it sort of means to be it obviously means to draw a parallel and say this is likely to happen again. But they're good, March and Cary Grant. The Red Ball Express from 1952, right after World War II and during the Korean War. Bud Boddicker directed this. This is really rock solid.
Yeah.
This is all takes place during Patton and when they're trying to get supplies into Paris right at the end of World War II. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in here. It's based on true events, but I don't know how much of it really is.
Yep.
And then lastly, this is the one that really shines, is Richard Burton in Raid on Rommel, another Henry Hathaway movie.
Yeah.
This was made in 1971. Beautiful widescreen photography, full color, fantastic. And you're watching this just for the epic filmmaking here, for the Henry Hathaway direction, and for Richard Burton just pulling out all stops and being an amazing soldier and intelligence officer, trying to lead the attack on Tobruk. Of the movies about Tobruk, I think this one is better. There are about 3 or 4 of them, including one called Tobruk, but I think Raid on Rommel is the best of them.
Those early '70s war movies about World War II, they had a completely different look to them than the movies made even in the '40s, let alone in the '50s.
They also had a different look than World War II.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But they dealt with different aspects of the war that I thought was always more. A lot of them taking place in war in Northern Africa and all that kind of stuff.
For sure,
just the stuff in Europe. Interesting stuff.
For sure. Tim, what else? You got some? We got some LGBT stuff.
Yeah, I thought I would bump through a bit of that for us real quick. Let's go over here and start with Dark Room, which I believe is a German film, if I'm not mistaken. A neat movie. It's about this nurse and his boyfriend, and they move to Berlin, and they're going to move into this apartment together and live together. And there's a kind of situation where the one guy doesn't know that the other one is secretly checking out Berlin's, sort of ongoing nightlife, and he's experimenting with drugs and gets a hold of this fairly deadly poison. I like this movie because it's a bit of a thriller. It's more of a thriller than anything else. Put me in mind. I keep trying to think of the Al Pacino film, Cruising.
Cruising. Yeah.
Stuck in my head. So it's more that than it is anything else. Rather enjoyed that little movie, Dark Room, 2019 film. And then we have another film that walks down more traditional territory. This is sort of like a Russian Brokeback Mountain. It's about these two guys, and they have all kinds.
Siberia and him. Siberia and him. Yeah.
And this is a real Brokeback Mountain of a Russian gay film, which is sort of impressive in and of itself, but very sort of contemporary. The area that they're in is absolutely beautiful because they're out in Siberia, so you have all this sort of beautiful photography in this movie. They fall in love out there in Siberia, but there are women involved, and it's, like I said, very
given what's going on in Russia, given how this stuff is censored, how would this film have gotten made? Do we have any idea?
How would it have gotten made, and where would it have been distributed? Every place else in Europe, I suppose. There you go. You have an interesting question there. Interesting leads to this other film, the next film, Bitter Years. This is a film about, I guess you would call this guy the Harvey Milk of the early '70s Italian gay movement.
Okay.
And he was quite a figure. Again, we forget sometimes that European culture was in some ways behind us when it came to these things, particularly in Italy. A very, very sort of machoistic cultures, and you had this guy who was sort of overtly gay and living his life in the early '70s and working on leading the Italian gay movement in the early '70s. So this is kind of a neat film about that historical figure. Then we have a film called The Lawyer. It's about this corporate lawyer who just, is a regular young gay man running around doing stuff. His father dies. And when his father dies, it kind of sends him into a tailspin. And he ends up sort of getting connected with this sex cam worker who he used to watch all the time. And it's interesting because the sex cam guy is a Syrian refugee. And this all sort of takes place in Belgrade. It's dramatic. It's romantic. It's kind of interesting, slow little movie. I rather enjoyed that one. A French television series set in 1981 called Proud. And what this basically looks at, or it starts in 1981 and then moves over several generations. And what it's really looking at is how the dynamic of gay people has changed from the early 80s, 40 years ago, right to the present day. In 1981, it was still absolutely illegal to be gay in France, period. Illegal to be gay. In 1981, it was not illegal to be gay in the United States of America. We didn't have gay marriage yet, but it wasn't illegal to actually be gay.
Interesting.
But in France, it was still actually literally illegal to, the present day, where LGBTQ couples can in fact get married and have families and everything. A really interesting generation.
And
look
that's
at that.
and this is
enjoyed that.
And this is from Philippe Faucon, who directed Fatima.
Oh yeah,
a really good film from a few years ago.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting about that, I lived in France not too long after that. Never would have known that history. Wow. Never would have known. Yeah. It's just fascinating to me.
Well, we have a little film called Benjamin, a lovely little film from 2018. It's about a young filmmaker who finds himself falling in love with this guy. He has a second film that's about to premiere, and all of this is going to make a difference in the way all of that plays out. This is a sweet little romantic comedy. It's very, very cute. Nothing that's really dire that's going on in the movie, and I rather like that about that one. Let's see. That's all I have here at the moment, Wade. What do you got over there?
I want to make, for Lynyrd Skynyrd fans, there's a couple of things that came out that I should make quick mention of, because we've had two movies that are sort of Lynyrd Skynyrd based, that center around that band. And if you don't know, Lynyrd Skynyrd is what's kind of famous is the plane crash. Mm. If you don't know about that, I'm not going to go into any greater details. But what we've got first off is a documentary about the plane crash called "I'll Never Forget You: The Last 72 Hours of Lynyrd Skynyrd," which is based on the book "I'll Never Forget You," and this is basically put together from firsthand accounts from people who survived the crash, and it's kind of harrowing. I mean, it's not a great documentary from a craft standpoint, but it is harrowing just from an emotional standpoint. And then we have a dramatic film here. It's a Blu-ray DVD combo that also comes with a soundtrack CD, which of course it almost has to. And this is better than I expected for an independent film that clearly didn't have the budget to fully to go where it needed to go. But it's called Street Survivors: The True Story of the Lynyrd Skynyrd Plane Crash. And apart from some of the shortcuts in terms of budget, it's actually surprisingly good. And again, I'm not going to give, if you don't know what happened in the plane crash, what caused it, who survived, who didn't, et cetera, I will give none of that away. But boy, it really, independent of some of the production value stuff, it really packs a bit of a punch, and the performances are very, very good. So Street Survivors: The True Story of the Lynyrd Skynyrd Plane Crash. Let me hit a few Mill Creek titles here.
Okay.
Mill Creek's come out with a lot of stuff lately. Most of it DVD, not a lot of Blu-rays, but one of the more interesting Blu-rays is Trapped. If you remember that's an early Charlize Theron movie with Kevin Bacon and Courtney Love. Stuart Townsend is in this as well. You know what? I mean, we all kind of think that Charlize Theron was a pretty face early on in her career, and then she kind of became an actress later.
No.
But I would say no. She always really had it going. This is from 2002, and she was already showing some chops here. Even if the movie isn't, great, even if it is kind of a low-level thriller, it's a ransom thriller basically. But she really pulls out the stops here. You can see that there's a great actress coming. We also have a couple of Ultraman titles. Ultraman the series and Ultraman the movie. This is modern Ultraman. This is a let's see what's the technical title here, because there's just so much Ultraman. Yeah. This is the more recent Ultraman, just from the last few years. But in any case, this is Ultraman the series and Ultraman the movie, the more recent incarnations, all on one combo pack, a Blu-ray and digital combo pack. And then Ultraman Ace, which is pretty great. This is Series 5. of the original Ultraman titles, and it comes in a wonderful steelbook to go with the others. They've already released the first 4. This one will fit on the shelf just beautifully alongside them. I think this is probably at least as good as the first 4. It's pretty much the same kind of deal, just different designs. The Ultramen are getting a little bit, fancier in terms of the suits, and the special effects are a little bit better, but it's still really, really fun. And then a bunch of regular. Well, here's a couple of other Blu-rays. Let me just hit some of these Blu-rays. Got some double features in here too. The Blu-rays include The Nines with Ryan Reynolds and Hope Davis, which is a really, really good movie that doesn't get enough credit. It was written and directed by John August, the great screenwriter, who also has a really good podcast. And this, I really, really think people should make an effort to check this out. It kind of came and went. It's a really, really interesting kind of white edge of your seat. Avant-garde surrealist thriller. Maybe that makes sense, but it's basically comprised of 3 short films that work together as one film, all of them starring Ryan Reynolds. And it's a little funky, but it works.
A lot of
also have
names that we hadn't heard yet. Like Octavia Spencer was in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who would eventually come of age and become a big deal. Yeah, for sure. Got another one of these Andy Sidaris movies, Enemy Gold. Guy with a gun, girls with guns in skimpy outfits, and a plot that makes no sense, and it doesn't need to, because it's just got muscle bound guys and skimpy girls with guns, and they're all agents or gangsters or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's an Andy Sidaris movie. They're all the same. I got some cool double features here. The Contractor and The Fan, both of them with Wesley Snipes, the latter with Robert De Niro also on board. Contractor is kind of a straight-up Wesley Snipes actioner, but The Fan is not a bad movie. That's not a bad movie. Right? That was a Tony Scott movie.
For The Fan, I even still got the swag they gave me.
I do too.
Was it the San Francisco Giants watch?
Yeah.
I still got that swag, man.
Yeah. Wesley Snipes is, of course, a baseball player. Robert De Niro is an obsessed fan. It's one of those movies. Robert De Niro goes crazy, like he does in every movie that he's made, where he's a crazy, obsessed person. And Wesley Snipes, for some reason, is playing baseball in the rain at the end. They don't call the game for the rain.
So
Tony Scott didn't realize that. He's like, no, I need the rain because my name is Tony Scott, and that's what I do. I backlight the rain, so it looks cool.
Yeah.
And then a couple of double features here. Glenn Ford and Julia Adams in The Man from the Alamo, along with Gary Cooper and Rita Hayworth in They Came to Cordura. Pretty much just basically, gunslinging westerns with tough guys. But they make a nice double feature, and it's bargain priced, so why not? Yeah. And then crime double feature, Hollywood Story and New Orleans Uncensored, both of them directed by William Castle. The first with Richard Conte and Julia Adams, the other New Orleans Uncensored with Arthur Franz and Beverly Garland. Basically, you're watching these because they're William Castle movies. They're fun. Not a lot of stars, but the William Castle touch, which is a little bit cheesy but a lot of fun, is definitely worth watching. So a couple of William Castle noirs there. Very good stuff.
Can't go wrong.
All right.
Want me to jump on?
Can't go wrong. Yeah. By all means, let's hit the new movies.
I'll knock out a couple of new ones anyway. Let's see. We got Babyteeth. Let's see. Do I remember this movie? I think I saw this one. It's about this young teenage girl who's ill, and she falls in love with her drug dealer. And what her parents are going to do about that. This movie is actually rather touching and moving. It lives in the same spot as some of those Nicholas, whatever his name is, movies that always get made where there's a dying girl.
Nicholas Sparks, right? Nicholas Sparks,
yeah, Nicholas Sparks. That's right. But it's a Shannon Murphy film, and it's a little bit more sincere and perhaps a little bit more avant-garde. Liza Scanlon in the movie, and the kid Toby Wallace, who plays Moses in that movie, I found him rather striking. Tall, skinny kid. I mean, kind of a weird-looking kid, but in that sort of sexy kind of way. So rather enjoyed that. Don't know if that has any anything on it that might be interesting for the folks who know about Wade.
Not particularly. No, not especially.
Driveways. an Andrew Han film. This is a really lovely film, Asian themed, Chinese themed film. About this 8-year-old boy in the summer that he spends with his mother.
Brian Dennehy is so good in this. I mean, it's so sad that we lost him.
Yeah, I was
We
going to
lost him just
say
this
who
year.
we lost, of course, not too terribly long.
Yeah.
Christine Ebersol was in the movie too. Anyway, it's I don't know what I was trying to think of something to compare it to. I was thinking maybe that Clint Eastwood film.
Oh yeah.
You know, the one with the car.
Gran
Torino. You know, so
yeah.
In a little bit, sort of way, sort of lives in that spot. But it's a perfectly lovely movie that I really thought was good. Inside the Ring. Let's see. Oh, this is that sweet little. I saw this movie. This is that sweet little sort of romantic comedy about this kid who's going to get kicked out of college, and he's bipolar.
Oh yeah. He got ADHD and OCD and every other D. Yeah.
He meets this girl. Now, writer director is this kid. It's this young person, Aaron Fish. Rosie Perez shows up in the movie. Eric Roberts, and he's now. I don't know. I do not think that Aaron Fisher actually suffers from the sort of OCD and other bipolar issues that this character suffers from. But he's right in that. I swear to God, he was so familiar that he executed the performance wonderfully. He's the writer director of the film, and he's the star of the film. Anyway, he gets involved with this stripper, and he thinks he's in love with her, and his parents are trying to deal with how completely nuts he is, and he's trying to argue for why he should not get kicked out of school. And it's an engaging film that I really rather enjoyed. Anything interesting in that I would have loved to have seen.
Absolutely nothing but a trailer. That's all that is on it. Few other movies that were that would have been in theaters but didn't get to theaters, but they got to VOD, and now they're on DVD and Blu-ray. These are all Blu-ray. One is Most Wanted, which resurrects the career a little bit of Josh Hartnett, who played. This is a true story about a Canadian film, basically about the investigative reporter, the kind of the hipster investigative reporter, played by Josh Hartnett, who is who exposed the corruption. How do I do this even without revealing this? Who exposed the corruption behind a heroin bust that was designed. There's a guy. It's basically a French Canadian guy who was framed in a heroin bust, and how and why that transpired. It was a very scandalous thing in Canada. And I'll leave it at that. But it's not as good as it should be. Jim Gaffigan playing a heavy, which he's doing a lot of lately, is one of the more interesting things about it. Josh Hartnett, surprisingly good. We haven't seen him in quite a while, and so he's kind of trying to grow some hair and camouflage who he really is. It's worth a look. I don't think it's great, but it's worth a look. And then Steve Carell, starring in Irresistible, written and directed by Jon Stewart. Probably should have been better. This is about a small town politics that where they get. Well, how do we even do this? I think Primary Colors is a better version of this story. Let me put it that way. Primary Colors is a better version of this story. The character played by Steve Carell here is basically the one played by Billy Bob Thornton in Primary Colors. And what they want is they want to go to this small town and take this average guy played by Chris Cooper, and turn him into a national figure to humanize the Democratic Party, make it seem more in touch with the common man. And it all winds up making this relatively small election into a giant national spectacle, with Steve Carell going toe-to-toe with Rose Byrne, who plays his rival on the other side. It means to have a lot to say about our politics, but it winds up being just a little bit too pat. Mm-hmm. I think Jon Stewart kind of went for screenwriting 101 instead of a really original story, but it's okay. The cast kind of pulls it through. And then King of Staten Island, Peter Davidson from SNL, not one of my favorite people, doing a doing a movie with Judd Apatow. I can't say I really like this. Did you see this, Tim?
Yeah, I did see it. Because they ran it. It was one of the first movies that when the pandemic began.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was Universal, if I'm not mistaken.
It's kind of the first Judd Apatow movie that I don't really get. Like, even if I think they're too long, I get them. I don't really know why he wanted to do this movie. Peter Davison is not really appealing.
Judd Apatow kind of discovered Peter Davison, sort of comic, and of course, what we come to know about Peter. Peter has a fairly tough story as a young man. His father was killed during 9/11. And a good deal of the backstory of this character, what's going on with this character, sort of feeds back into that whole. I suppose it's meant to be cathartic for them. I'm not sure how it's meant to play out in my life, but
that's what I don't get.
Funny nor cathartic for me. So what can I say? I have deepest empathy for him and the loss of his father.
Well, they can have it. It's not my kind of movie.
I got a couple over here I want to knock through real quick, including a couple of smaller films. This one from Sean McNamara called The Mighty Oak. This is a neat little movie, actually, which I don't know, but I saw it for the show. So it's about this woman. She's a music promoter. 10 years earlier, her brother was the lead of this band that she was managing, and he was going to be a big star, and everybody knew it, and it was going to be fantastic. And he dies in an automobile accident. Fast forward to now, she's still a music promoter, a music manager, and she runs across this young man who, for all the world, has all of the talent and skill and sounds and moves just like her little brother. Could he be the reincarnation?
Oh, that's weird.
And it's just one of those sort of movies, kind of slightly walking along. It's a PG-13 movie, but it's meant to engage your sense of the
mystical,
the magical, and the love never really goes away. It's really about how she's dealing with all of that. Raven Simone is in the movies. So those of you who love I'm so Raven and all that.
Yay, Raven!
In the movie. And what else do I have here? Another. I saw this one also for the radio show back when it came out. Timothy Anderson's film called 200,000 Dirty. Coolio in this film, and Coolio. Now, we will all remember Coolio from back in I guess it would have been the 90s, with the little braids stuck up like little spider tentacles all over.
Yeah.
Well, he's still doing that, only there's no hair in the middle anymore. It's more or less like all coming out from the sides, and then you got the bowl, but the attitude there is more or less the same. Anyway, they work in this strip mall at this mattress store, and it's just a horrible, horrible existence. A young woman comes in to be the assistant manager there, and she figures out a plot where they're going to steal $200,000 from this guy. It's all fairly funny. These encounters.
Sounds like Clerks with Coolio.
Kinda, but mostly it's about Coolio. Dude, I did not know that there was a Deep Blue Sea 2, right? So Deep Blue Sea 1999, we remember that, of course, with a couple of films that movie. Thomas Jane, LL Cool J as opposed to Coolio in that movie. I didn't know there was a Deep Blue Sea 2, so I damn sure didn't know that there's a Deep Blue Sea 3, which there is. All right.
Yes, there is. And you know what I love about this? I love the tagline. The tagline is deadlier than ever. You know what? You know what they should have put the tagline? Not as deadly as before, but what the hell? That would have made more sense.
Oh man, these movies. You put a shark in a movie and you have a bunch of wacky stuff happening, and you get yourself one of these. I don't know what to say about that. There it is, Deep Blue Sea. Dancing Dogs of Dubrovnia, on the other hand, is a perfectly lovely Polish film about this brother and sister, sort of estranged brother and sister, your classic estranged brother and sister, who get suckered back to their small town in Poland at the bequest of their dying grandmother. And mostly it's a ploy to bring them back together as brother and sister. But there is a thing that they're going back for. But mostly we get to travel with this brother and sister, and I thought it was just a perfectly lovely sort of comedy, brother-sister comedy that was really, really, really sweet. Lovely Polish film. So check that one out for sure. What else you got,
Super sweet. I got Trip to Greece, and you look at this and you think, okay, so this is the third of the Trip films. I guess they've made a trilogy now.
Yeah.
Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. This is it. It's the final course, is what they call it. The Trip to Greece, the final course.
They're all based
And you
around
think,
food a lot, mostly.
yeah, I mean, basically, it's shtick. It's just it's Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon just going somewhere exotic to experience the food, and then doing their kind of Abbott and Costello shtick that they do. And my question going in was, what could Michael Winterbottom and Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon do that they haven't done in the other two films?
Yeah.
And the answer is nothing. It's more nothing. It's more of the same.
Yeah.
But that's all everybody wants out of these movies. They just want more of the same.
They add an impression or two.
Yeah, but it's basically it's still the two of them doing their shtick.
Gist of it is the same. So yeah, there you go. The thing about those movies is, there's that sort of, they're playing versions of themselves or themselves. There are but there are these excerpts in the movie or vignettes in the movie where they're playing themselves, but now they're not really playing themselves, and they're sort of narrative bits of movies that are scripted. And I guess to my mind, none of those movies, including you don't need any of that. Get rid of all that scripted stuff. And just you guys, and plus, if you do that, you can knock 20 minutes off these movies.
There you go.
Because they weren't movies. They weren't movies in the UK anyway. That was television, if I'm not mistaken. And they chop them up and move them around. Michael Winterbottom, and they chop them up, move around, and made them theatrical release movies for the American market, the North American market. Fine, but I think that they would have probably just played better as the TV shows that they were in the first place.
Tim, let's talk about Rod Lurie and The Outpost for a second. The Outpost is now out. This is written and directed by Rod Lurie, former film critic and member of the LA Film Critics Association, and someone that Tim and I have known for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Former film critic for Los Angeles Magazine. Rod, here's the thing about Rod, who of course has done a number of films that have gotten some and not some so great reviews. But here's what's amazing: this is an amazing war film set in Afghanistan.
Yeah, Rod, of course, is a graduate of West Point.
See, that's the thing, and a lot of people don't know that is that Rod Lurie, before he was a film critic, was a West Point graduate. He knows his military stuff, that he knows, and this is a world that he has not personally explored. He was co-creator of Madam Secretary on television. And so this is Rod really finally going not entirely into politics, but into the nitty gritty of the military, which he knows very, very well, and you can tell. I am so sorry that this didn't get a theatrical release because it needed it. It deserved it. It should be seen on a big screen. The pandemic kind of ruined that. I hope it gets some kind of a limited theatrical release eventually when we get back to theaters, because nobody has yet made a movie about American soldiers fighting the Taliban. Oddly enough, here we are, almost 20 years past the initial invasion of Afghanistan. We've had movies about the Iraq War, but the Afghan part of it has not really been treated in the movies. And I think this is a great film. I think it's a terrific film. I hope it gets a little bit of an Oscar push. He does a great job taking actors who are kind of pretty boys who've been associated with other kinds of films, notably Orlando Bloom and Caleb Landry Jones, and he gives them a whole new look here. Orlando Bloom is trying to get a little bit tougher and less of the pretty boy kind of Errol Flynn character that he was nurturing early on in his career with Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean. Here he goes for gritty, and the best thing that they did for Caleb Jones is shave that red hair off.
Yeah.
He's no longer that kind of he got stereotyped into kind of ginger roles for a while, right? Yeah. The fair-skinned, freckled, red-haired guy is a bit of a trope in the movies, and he was getting pigeonholed with those roles for a long time. They shaved his head. He gets to be a soldier. And he's great. And you see his range in a way that you've never seen it before. I think this is a really solid film. It's got a great commentary by Rod. He really, really goes into it. And it's got some rehearsal footage, too, and behind-the-scenes stuff. It's very, very good.
Yeah, good stuff. Rod, really, really sort of excellent and diverse sort of filmmaker. Rod lost a son not very long ago. Of course, Kevin Pollak in Rod's first film, friend of the show, Kevin Pollak, and
Yeah.
his first film, Deterrence, 1999. Yeah, some really, really good stuff.
Let's see. We've also got a couple of films that have almost an exact identical title. They both have, and it's not, anything unusual. We get films with the same titles all the time, but not usually on the same week. And here we have, again, Orlando Bloom going gritty in Retaliation, which is a very difficult movie. I'm not going to say, he's doing the same thing that he was doing in Outpost, trying to sort of forge a new identity as an actor as he's getting older. And this is about a guy who was molested by a priest as a young man, and now he encounters the priest again as he's older, and he starts plotting basically the priest's murder. It's not a thriller, though. It's a character study of an incredibly damaged man who has carried this damage with him his whole life, and how he seeks to reconcile himself to it in the worst way possible. This is not a fun film to watch, but it is a grueling film, and it's I'm not sure how I recommend this, but if the subject matter certainly appeals to you, then I would say you will be well served by it, but you need to go in prepared. And the other one is also called Retaliation. More specifically, I Am Vengeance Retaliation. This is less of a serious film. This is just more of a straight up actioner with Vinnie Jones and Stu Bennett. Tough guys, few tough women, some fighting, a lot of guns, a lot of explosions. Stu Bennett, for those who don't know, is a former wrestler. And it's all shot in Eastern Europe with like a special forces team, and it's got some government spy thing going on. I couldn't make a whole lot of sense of it. It's the usual thing that goes on. There's a lot of kind of fake spy talk and fake government talk, and then fake mission talk, and then stuff starts blowing up and bullets start getting fired, and somehow it all resolves in the end. I think there's a double cross or two. If you blink, you'll miss. If you blink, you'll miss the details, but it doesn't really matter. It's perfectly serviceable, but not remarkable. Let's see what else we got. We should make mention of this as long as we're on the subject of new films before we start to wrap up here in a little bit. This is The True History of the Kelly Gang. It's the story of Ned Kelly. Yeah.
That Mick Jagger film is running now on movies. That movie channel I watch, that it's running all. Yeah, I keep seeing pieces of Mick Jagger played Ned Kelly, and I guess he played Ned, right? And that Australian.
He did. He played in that. It was that weird Australian film from way back. Yeah. And we've also had another Ned Kelly film in the interim with Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger was in it. And Ned Kelly, of course, those who don't know, is sort of the famous Western outlaw of the Australian outback. Legendary for the big shootout that finally killed him, where he put on this weird kind of tin can suit of armor and came out guns ablazing, and they took him out. All of these movies,
figure, I guess, if you were
Jesse James and Billy the Kid all wrapped in one. Anyway, this is yet another telling of it, directed by Justin Kurtzel. It is this one's a little bit too tricked up. It's a little bit hyper stylized, and it's got some weird cross-dressing stuff in it that is not part of the original story. He just did it because. But there are some very, very good performances in it, notwithstanding all the hyper stylization and the stuff that's a little bit annoying. Russell Crowe is in this thing as Harry Power, who was sort of Ned's mentor. Harry Power was a legendary bushman outlaw in his own right, kind of a pudgy, bearded guy who, hijacked wagon trains and all kinds of stuff. Not wagon trains, but, people on stagecoaches and whatnot. So he's really good. Russell Crowe as Harry Power almost steals the movie. You almost wish it was a Harry Power movie. But anyway, it is a Ned Kelly movie, True History of the Kelly Gang. Not great, but it has spots in it, and it's got a trailer and then kind of a semi-commentary. It's not really much of a commentary. Go. Anytime.
Yeah. So anyway, this movie's kind of interesting to me for one reason only. It's Beckman, right? It's an action thriller, straight up wacky movie. I love the theme. You got this guy. He's a contract killer. He literally becomes a legit reverend at a church in L.A. literally, actually, completely sincerely, until his daughter gets kidnapped.
Isn't that always the story?
By the leader of this cult, and then of course he goes bananas across the city, messing people up.
He goes Bronson. He goes full
Full
Bronson.
Bronson, the Reverend and the Hitman. It's a good thing the Reverend has those previous Hitman skills though, because they come in handy. And you got Billy Baldwin, and you got Jeff Fahey, and all of these guys. I just sort of love these kinds of movies. It's a good rip roar with that kind of a theme. So if you haven't seen one of those in a while, you might want to give that one a look. That's the one I wanted to toss in there.
All right, good deal. All right, let me jump into some of the 4K titles here. We've got two biggies this week, actually three, two regular films and then one box set. The box set is the Alfred Hitchcock Classics Collection on 4K Ultra HD. This is a big deal. Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, and The Birds. Now, people might be asking themselves, well, why didn't you include, The Trouble with Harry and blah, 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 the rest of them from the original Hitchcock box set? And the reason being that a lot of them need restoration. A lot of them need to be redone digitally. These four look fantastic. Psycho obviously is black and white and didn't need a lot of work. But these are the ones that are ready for prime time. These are the ones that are ready for 4K UHD. And so be happy with what you got, and the others will come in due order. But I know that means if you have the other box set and you're like, but I got to keep the box set, I can't. Now I'm double dipping. Don't worry about it. Just deal with the anxiety. The other stuff will come in short order. This also has two versions of Psycho on it. We should point out, because Psycho was changed after it was originally screened in 1960. And this includes the original 1960 uncensored version of it, which a lot of people have not seen. So, and of course, Rear Window and The Birds and Vertigo, it's all incomparable, but they look fantastic. Absolutely gorgeous, beautiful 4K. It is well worth the upgrade. And then we have Full Metal Jacket. Yay! On 4K. Arlie Ermy swearing at you. Tim, is there any more quotable movie than in history? I mean, period.
The fantastic screenplay, Stanley and Michael. It's just, and young Matthew Modine. There's so many guys that came to be, to go on to have real careers and become real stars. Vincent D'Onofrio, Dorian Harewood, Arliss Howard, just so many. This is one of those movies that simply made careers. Back in the day, along with a lot of those movies that were coming out in the mid '80s. This is '87, I think, that were set in around the war in Vietnam. You had this, and you had Platoon, which is also running right now. Made a whole other group of guys. You had Hamburger Hill, also running right now, and of course, Full Metal Jacket, the granddaddy of them all.
And I know a lot of people kind of don't really get it because it's really two acts. It's guys at boot camp and then guys in the jungle, or not in the jungle, but in
country, as we say.
In country, as they say. But look, there would be no Vincent D'Onofrio if not for this movie. Yeah. It's just so good.
And it said Arlie, of course, we lost Arlie not too long ago. Arlie, of course, had been a drill sergeant.
And he's played it before in movies.
And it sort of shaped his career for the rest of his life.
and a lot of that dialogue he came in with, a lot of those quotable lines are not Kubrick. Those are his lines. He brought them in from the field. And then we also have the 45th anniversary limited edition of Jaws on 4K, the blockbuster that started it all. Jaws. When I taught my class that you were very kind enough to come and guest in, Jaws was the movie that I used to sort of identify as the change in style. I said, look at, and I showed them, a movie something from just a few years before Jaws, and then showed them Jaws. I said, does the other movie look like an old movie? They're like, yeah, it feels like an old movie. Does Jaws feel like it could have been made last year? Yep, it sure does. Spielberg changed everything with Jaws. He basically brought a style of filmmaking in that changed everything. And the sometimes when this is shown, you theatrically, you get a kind of a bleached out print, and it looks like a movie from the 70s because they all have that sort of washed out, grainy color. They have done a number on this so that the only thing that tells you this is a movie from the 70s are the clothes. because otherwise the sound, the picture, the movie itself, everything about it, it feels as modern as can be. They've done a wonderful job. It absolutely justifies the 4K upgrade. It has a lenticular hologram cover, which we always used to make fun of, but it's actually kind of cool the way they do it. So tons of extras on here too. All the behind the scenes stuff. It's really, really great. I love this movie. It just doesn't it ages so well.
Yeah, the story of the mechanical shark that didn't work most of the time, and thus made the movie. Yeah, fantastic.
Well, it's, you know what, the thing that I also love about this is that it's the movie that was saved by Verna Fields, right? That's the famous story, is that Spielberg was the up and coming director. He had just done the Sugarland Express, and this was supposed to put him over the top. And the first cut of the film was a disaster. The shark looked fake. People, it was a disaster. And to show you what a good editor can do, Verna Fields came in, cracked her knuckles, worked her magic, and suddenly it became the most successful film in history. Yeah. It cleaned up. It cleaned up.
Yeah, get that shark out of the movie. M. Night Shyamalan could have learned from that years later.
True.
Movies like Sign and whatnot. Stop showing me the monster.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll never be as scary as the thing in my head.
Let's see. We have just a few minutes left. Should probably make mention of some of our Criterion titles here. Let me just pull these out. We've got two this week that are well worth mentioning. The Elephant Man, what I still think is David Lynch's best film, is out on Blu-ray from Criterion in a lovely kind of slim custom case. There are loads of extras here. Keep in mind, David Lynch doesn't like chapter divisions, and he doesn't like commentaries. That's not his deal. So he wants you to put the movie on and watch it straight through. So I recommend you do that and honor the man's wishes. That said, this has a ton of extras on it. It's got archival interviews with everybody from Lynch to Mel Brooks, who of course produced it and gave Lynch his shot directing it. John Hurt. It's got audio recording from the American Film Institute interview with David Lynch in 1981. It's got a 2001 documentary about the actual Elephant Man. So much stuff. I mean, endless amounts of material here. So it may be not what everybody wants necessarily, but boy, it really, really does round the film out. And the Criterion black and white transfer of the Elephant Man is as beautiful as anything you will ever see. And then lastly, Martin Scorsese's World Cinema Project, which features 6 films from other countries, other periods of time. This is part of what his World Cinema Project is. This is the latest collection of them, 3 double features on here, basically. 3 separate little sleeves you can pull out. Each one has 2 films. We have Umberto Solas's Lucia from Cuba in 1968. Usmar Ismail's After the Curfew from Indonesia in 1954. Hector Babenco, who was the most famous of all of these. Hector Babenco made Piote in Brazil in 1980, would go on to do Kiss the Spider Woman and many other fine films. Juan Bustillo Oro's Dos Monjes, 1934 film in Mexico, an early talkie. Med Hondo's Soleil O from Mauritania, 1970. And lastly, Bahram Beyz's Downpour, an early Iranian film from 1972. Scorsese's been doing this since 2007 with his Film Foundation's World Cinema Project, which basically seeks to bring the world smaller through this kind of ethnographic film programming of films from all different corners of the world and all periods of time. It's a beautiful collection, and you will learn an enormous amount, not just about filmmaking, but about other cultures and people. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it really is. We should do something like that. We should bring films to the fore, whatever they are. I mean, they don't even have to be from other cultures that we think are fantastic.
Yeah.
That we just want folks to know about.
The slip between the cracks, the slip between the cracks,
or just from long ago, and that'd be a wonderful thing to do. We should do that.
Yeah, indeed. All right, well, with that, we're going to bring the show to a close, and I'm going to tag the end of the show here for those who are interested. We're going to have an extra little segment that I pre-recorded on anime, because we're getting a ton of anime. That seems to be the one thing that is thriving right now, because you can't go on sets anywhere in the world and shoot movies the way that you used to. So movies are kind of being choked a little bit at the moment, but television, not necessarily. And anime, definitely not. A bunch of guys can still get around in Japan and draw pictures. So as long as they can do that with a mask on, apparently we're going to get anime. So anime is thriving right now. And if you stick around the end of the show, I will dovetail us into our little anime segment. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with a really great interview with Paul Benedict Rowan, author of Making Ryan's Daughter: The Myths, Madness, and Mastery. Stay tuned for that in a matter of days. Tim, anything else that I've missed?
I don't think so, man. I think we covered just about everything that it's possible to cover today.
All right. Well, stay safe out there. Hopefully the air clears up and they get that fire out. And I'll catch up with you next week.
All right. See you, folks.
And here is our anime segment for the last week of September. The incredible thing about anime is that it seems to be the one thing that is defying the pandemic. Everything else seems to be kind of a lot of studios are mining their libraries and their catalogs, and new movies that are in the can are coming out, but everybody's kind of looking for new material. And yet anime is thriving. It is an enormous industry in Japan. We cover it as often as we can, and it really seems to be the thing that is defying the pandemic. So we're getting a lot of really great anime titles. First off is going to be an absolute moment of celebration for anime fans, especially those with 4K. 4K has not been adopted for anime titles to any significant degree until now. And the legendary Ghost in the Shell is out in a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray and digital combo set. This is courtesy of Lionsgate, who has pulled out all the stops. It is an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous release. Ghost in the Shell is really a legendary milestone in anime, especially in the mecha and the cyberpunk fields. It's just huge. And this is a significant achievement to put it on 4K, to remaster it the way that they have. It's absolutely gorgeous. The color pops, the animation pops. If there is a drawback to it in any way, it is that that 4K does to anime pretty much what it does to everything else, which is that it reveals the flaws. It shows you a little bit too much of the detail that would normally not necessarily show up, especially if you're sitting close to your television. But that's a small price to pay. It's a minor thing. The transfer is absolutely fantastic. It comes with an audio commentary, with featurettes and all kinds of behind-the-scenes making-of stuff that will give you wonderful insight into anime. Also comes with digital copy. Although because it's Lionsgate, it is not Movies Anywhere, so you have to kind of pick your player, pick your outlet. But that being said, it's still fantastic. So as long as Lionsgate eventually aligns with the Movies Anywhere consortium, I think you'll be in good shape. So anyway, yes, that is Ghost in the Shell on 4K. 4K with Blu-ray and with digital copy. Also a really big deal is Your Name from Funimation. This is a steelbook. Your Name was a huge deal for us in the LA Film Critics Association. We gave this our best animated film of the year a few years back. And it was one of the big anime films of the decade. This is from Makoto Shinkai, who is a real powerhouse in anime and will be for quite a while to come. This is a beautiful kind of fantasy existential mind-tripping romance. It's sort of it's one of the few anime that kind of goes to a philosophical place that is positive and not sort of born out of post-nuclear anxiety, which is really where anime was in many ways was born. This is a hopeful anime. It is a very humanistic anime, and it's extremely imaginative, and really even for people who don't necessarily like anime, I think they will find a lot here to really, really love. There's an interview with Makoto Shinkai among the special features, as well as a special television program and some trailers, and that is a steelbook from Funimation. And then we also have, from Funimation, Human Lost, the movie. And this is actually based on a novel, which I didn't know, a novel that was originally written in 1948. I don't know how closely the novel hews to this. But the story basically is near future. It takes place about 15 years in the future from now, where medicine and nanotechnology have made people immune to disease. But if you remove the nanotechnology or you undo it, you turn into a monster. So there's a bit of a kind of cyberpunk Frankenstein theme going on here. It's very, very well done, very interesting. It takes a little bit to get into to kind of adapt to the world that they're building, but once you're into it, it's kind of a very provocative ride. G-Kids, working with Shout Factory, have released another 3 terrific titles. The obvious, most important one being The Wind Rises from Hayao Miyazaki. This is part of their Studio Ghibli line, and this was Academy Award nominated as well. The Wind Rises is a beautiful, beautiful film. One of Miyazaki's very, very best. The English language voice talent is off the chart. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and William H. Macy, John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, Mandy Patinkin, Stanley Tucci, Martin Short. It's a really, really amazing cast. The story, of course, is it all takes place in 1923 after a rather substantially legendary earthquake, and it's the story of a very, very famous plane designer, Jiro Horikoshi, who is a bit of a legendary figure in Japan. Controversial at the same time because of his involvement in World War II later on, but as far as anime biopics go, this is the only one I'm even remotely familiar with that is that. So it's a beautiful film, beautifully done, captures the era and all the sensibilities of the story in a really, really lovely way. Very nostalgic. The Wind Rises from Hayao Miyazaki and the Studio Ghibli collection from G-Kids and Shout Factory. Includes a storyboards, documentary material, making of material, and a booklet. It's really, really great. And then also from the G-Kids Shout Factory Alliance, a couple of others, Children of the Sea and Weathering with You. Makoto Shinkai, who we just talked about a moment ago, is the genius behind Weathering with You. And this unfortunately didn't get enough traction last year. Probably should have. For whatever reason, it just didn't kind of hit the mark the way that others did, either as far as Critics Awards or the Academy Awards. But this is really again, it's not in the same vein as Your Name, but it has a lovely charm all of its own. Basically, it's a story of a runaway boy and an orphan girl, and this really, really sweet youth romance. And the only thing that distinguishes it is, of course, the magical quality that the girl has power to control the weather, which dovetails into all kinds of wonderful allegorical and metaphorical imagery, and it's very, very sweet. So if you like Your Name, you're going to definitely want to check out Weathering with You, also by Makoto Shinkai. Loaded with extras as well, a further interview with Shinkai, also a talk show from Japanese television, featurette, and a bunch of other stuff. So pretty great. And then the other title, Children of the Sea, is also likewise packed with all kinds of stuff. Whatever Weathering with You is to sort of the weather, Children of the Sea is to the sea, which is to say that it is a source for all kinds of wonderful metaphorical and allegorical comments on youth and society and friendship. This is the story of a young girl who, during her summer vacation, hangs out at the aquarium where her father works and develops a friendship with a couple of very strange young boys who seem to be in possession of a certain aquatic powers, and all kinds of other interesting phenomena is happening around the world related to the oceans, and especially around Japan. And so you do get, it's a very similar thing. It's friendship and romance and a wonderful kind of allegorical, metaphorical backdrop to it. Beautiful film, also tons of featurette material and on the making of the film. So G-Kids continues to really knock it out of the park. From Right Stuff, who continues to do great stuff, the Right Stuff and Sunrise Library. We have a couple of new Gundam editions, the single largest universe anywhere in the movies, larger than the Marvel Cinematic Universe, larger than the DC universe, larger than Star Wars, larger than anything else that has ever been conceived, even in anime, live action, or animation anywhere, is Gundam. There's no way to keep up with all the nuances of the Gundam timeline and the Gundam universe and which century and which wars and which characters. It's just vast. It can consume a lifetime. So without giving you any further detail on that, you can certainly research that. And it's a wealth of animation, too. The styles of animation are not necessarily always the same. So they certainly give their animators a lot of latitude. But it still all belongs to the Mecha universe, the universe of Transformers and Geta Robo and all the stuff that deals with giant robots and the like. This particular installment, Gundam Build Fighters, is kind of a weird meta part of the Gundam universe. It takes place in the 1980s, not in the actual Gundam world. It takes place in this world, and it centers around kids who build Gundam sets and engage in these kind of virtual warfare, this virtual gaming of Gundam warriors. It's a little peculiar. You got to really be into the Gundam world to sort of appreciate the meta quality of it, the self-reflexive quality. But it includes two really cool stories: Gundam Build Fighters Try Island Wars and Gundam Build Fighters GM's Counterattack, as well as the 5-episode miniseries Gundam Build Fighters Battle Log. Battle Log is probably the main reason to see this, but again, it takes a little familiarity with what's going on here. And then the next one is similar. This is not Gundam Build Fighters. This is Gundam Build Divers, and this is the sequel series. It is about 6 hours in length. I don't think it's quite as fun. It's a little bit. It tries to be more imaginative, and I think it's going for a little bit too much excess. But it'll make no sense unless you start with fighters. You got to start with fighters, work your way to divers. And if you have a little bit of background on it, you'll probably be able to dip into it pretty well. But again, this takes a little bit of background in the Gundam universe. You can find out more and purchase the discs by going to Right Stuff Anime. That is Right Stuff with one F, STUF, rightstuffanime.com. And then lastly, we have a whole bunch of really cool stuff from Sentai, courtesy of Section 23, which is mostly female-centric. It's amazing how strong the feminist impulse is these days with a lot of this stuff from Sentai. The complete 2 seasons of Diabolic Lovers, Diabolic with K at the end, based on what they call a visual novel. I am not familiar with the visual novel, which apparently is some kind of interactive gameplay thing. That's where this started. Effectively, there's obviously no interactivity here per se. There's just a few special features, not a ton. But the story, of course, is about a girl and her interaction with these 6 vampire brothers and the kind of gothic mysteries and adventures that entail. Really great animation, by the way. Fantastic artwork. Very imaginative. Very kind of un-anime in certain respects, and the storytelling as well. So it is certainly a departure. Probably would be more popular with teens than with adults. It aims for that Lost Boys kind of vibe. But Diabolic Lovers from Sentai, 2 seasons on Blu-ray. These are all Blu-ray, by the way. Then Undefeated Bahamut Chronicle, the complete collection. This is also very aggressive artwork and very cool. Kind of medieval gothic is maybe the genre style to describe on this. It's like medieval gothic mixed with mecha a little bit. Involves mechanical dragons and these kind of retro futuristic night ceremonies, and it's the central figure here is a prince by the name of Lux, and it centers around his relationship with a young princess and their relationship while at a kind of Harry Potter-like academy for training young royals of the Arcadia Empire. and other other royals and other families. That's kind of being a little bit evasive in getting to some of the secrets that are involved here. The mystery is kind of the thing, but the artwork is really, really beautiful. And that is Undefeated Bahamut Chronicle, the complete collection. And then we get into a lot of fun, really kind of kid-oriented stuff here with How Clumsy You Are, Miss Ueno. This skew's very, very young. It's very, very goofy. It's very silly. Doesn't necessarily work for me. It's very schoolgirl-oriented. But it obviously, there's a following for this stuff, as there is for a lot of other things that I don't particularly care for, like Pokemon. So, you know, if you want to see a lot of kind of anime, very young skewing anime slapstick, all of it oriented to schoolgirls and school politics and whatnot, and you know whatever peculiar things go on in Japanese schools, this is really down your alley. But it's a little bit over the top as far as the comedy. Old Maidens in Your Savage Season, another interesting title. This is a complete collection of another school-oriented thing. This is all about the literature club and at a particular school, and you think it's kind of chaste at that point, and then it takes a bit of a young adult turn. So you might want to look at this first if you're parents, if you're thinking about, you know, sitting some anime-loving kids down in front of this. I would say younger than 16, probably not, even though the animation looks like it's safe. It's a little bit more mature than that. So anyway, and it does ask some interesting questions, but not for the youngest kids. The sports fixation that is a peculiar part of anime, especially for those that skew to high school kids, is all over the place in Run with the Wind, the complete collection, which centers on high school running and the competition and the politics of track competition in high school. In this case, a relay marathon. It's got some, modest special features. The animation is fine. The storytelling is a little bit melodramatic, but it's right in the pocket with the rest of that stuff. We also have the complete collection of Tonari, Tonari, no Sekikun, the Master of Killing Time. Tonaro no Sekikun, Seki-kun, the Master of Killing Time. Once again, we are in the world of school slapsticks. This is kind of more middle school, high school oriented, but not terribly silly. Actually, kind of skews much younger than that age group. If we were not distance learning, I suspect my daughter would find this to be very, very funny. In the era of distance learning, it feels like something from another era. Basically, it's about a girl who goes crazy because of what the kid at the neighboring desk in her classroom is always doing, and it's an endless series of bizarre projects. It's like being next to Carrot Top in your classroom. It's cute. It's a little bit one note. It's apparently based on a manga series, as most of them are, with which I am not familiar, but it's got its moments. It's got its humorous little moments, but it definitely skews very, very young and very superficial. That is Tonari no Sekikun, the Master of Killing Time. We've also got another Utano Prince Sama, Maji Love Kingdom. This is superbly animated, but if you don't know, I mean, really extraordinary artwork and very imaginative and beautifully put together, tremendously artistic. But if you are not already kind of up to speed on the Utano world and everything that leads into this and is a part of this, you're probably going to be a little bit caught off guard. You probably should be somewhat initiated into this world before taking a dive into this one. The material basically centers on a school where kids learn to be pop stars and composers and whatnot. It's based on a PlayStation game originally, where a lot of this pop star stuff was obviously interactive, and the Maji Love was the original anime adaptation of that, and then there are several movies, and finally you get to Maji Love Kingdom. So this is sort of the tail end of all of that, and if you haven't really if you haven't really kind of gotten into it from the very, very beginning, that you're gonna it's gonna make no sense at all. So make sure you're caught up before you dive into this one. After the Rain, really lovely and poetic and very, very simple. This is about how to put this. This is sort of about finding your place in the world and learning how to love and learning how to love yourself more than anything else. It's one of those anime that deals with a young woman's insecurities and anxieties and the kind of existential journey that she goes on to discover all of that after her aspirations of being a track athlete are sidelined by an injury. And it's not about the athletics of it. It's not about the injury. It's about emotions and it's about growing up. It's not even really a coming of age film. It's sort of a coming to a sense of yourself film, and it is really, really nicely done. I shouldn't say film. It's a show. It's 12 episodes, but it's a nice story. And it doesn't require you to sort of immerse yourself in any kind of magical universe, as so many of these do, that comes with a lot of rules and parameters it's hard to sort of figure out. Similar in some respects is Frag Time. This also has some very simple and poetic things to say about life. Centers around these two girls who meet as a consequence of one of them having the power to stop time for 3 minutes every day, and the other one who is basically immune to it. And that's an interesting little allegorical twist that leads to some really lovely observations about life and love and friendship and other things. So Frag Time is probably also worth your time. And Try Nights, that's try like T-R-Y, Try Nights, K-N-I-G-H-T-S, not as in nighttime nights. I don't know that I necessarily realized that rugby was hugely popular in Japan. I guess it is. Japan's not exactly a rugby powerhouse. But that's what this is all about. This is all about the politics and the relationships and the strategies and the drama that goes on in a rugby team. And that's it. There's nothing else going on here. So if you're really into anime rugby, this is your cup of tea. If you're into rugby, I guess it's probably your cup of tea. But otherwise, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. The Tamako Market Love Story Collection includes the original television series and a movie on 3 discs. So it's everything here that the Tamako Market fans and fan base could possibly have hoped for. Again, skews pretty young. All takes place in and around a candy store, a family-run candy market, and deals mainly with a lot of childhood anxiety and the things that kids seem to think are more important than they really are, friendships and whatnot. The only thing that sets it kind of peculiarly apart is the talking bird. I won't get into the details of the talking bird. It's just one of those things that comes in from the side, and you just gotta kind of go with it. Domestic Girlfriend is kind of tedious, I thought. It definitely skews older teen, high school age, basically about a kid who has a crush on his teacher and then winds up possibly having a chance at a relationship with a classmate, and all of these rather... it's high school stuff. It's high school relationship stuff. I don't particularly like how they play it. I think it definitely pushes some buttons that I'd rather it not push. But it belongs to the high school romance and politics and sex crowd of that particular subgenre of anime. Domestic Girlfriend, the complete collection. On the other end of the spectrum is Senryu Girl, which is more high school drama, but it's about a girl basically who can only communicate through poetry. So all of these episodes, and this is a complete collection of this, all these episodes basically feel like animated poetry. It's lovely if you're into that. It's probably not so lovely if you're looking for something a little bit more. A little more accessible. It's a very, very peculiar, very particular kind of anime storytelling. Then we also have the very young skewing Restage Dream Days. That's RE stage, Dream Days. This is the complete collection, and this is more of the Japanese obsession with being a pop star, which apparently is a really big deal, especially with young girls in Japan. I'm sure it's a big deal with young girls everywhere, but other countries don't create multiple anime series about it, and they do. It's there's about this girl. She joins her little dance club, and winds up becoming like a big phenomenon and competition. And if you're really into American Idol and all that kind of stuff, you'll probably absolutely love it. Young girls who want to be pop stars, I don't know, might be too much, might not be the right thing you want to show them. Also skewing somewhat in the same age group, maybe a tad older, is Non-Non-Biyori Vacation, the movie. You don't have to necessarily be really, really into the Non-Non-Biyori world. You don't have to sort of have followed it to any great degree to necessarily appreciate what's going on here. It's cute, not great, but just cute. This is basically wedged between the two Non-Non-Biyori TV series, and all the kids are basically on vacation in Okinawa and having a great time. That's it. That's all there is going on here. So again, don't have to know the other stuff, but if you do, it's for completists. It's probably essential. Maid-sama, also from Sentai, the complete collection. More high school melodrama here. Basically about a girl who's popular in high school, and then the family has debt problems, and she has to take a secret job as a waitress, and what is that going to do to her popularity and her friendships and so forth and so on. 27 episodes. Some of you may have seen this on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but that's where a lot of people saw it here. It's on Blu-ray if you want to grab it. Also now on Blu-ray is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon 2. Familia Myth. We've talked about this before on the show. I can't really add anything to this other than the fact that it just keeps baffling me how this even got thought up. It's just, it's like, I don't know what it is. It is an unusual, very peculiar show idea that borders on hentai, but it's not. It's still anime. And it's supernatural, and it's provocative, and it's titillating, and it's half serious and half ridiculous, and I just don't understand it. But it has a following. They keep making them. So there it is. Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? Familia Myth. The complete collection, 12 episodes, plus the OVA on 2 discs. And getting down to just a few final titles here. There is Why the Hell Are You Here, Teacher? ! This is the complete collection of one of the more bizarre anime series that I've seen. Again, all centered around the politics of a public school. But this one is, again, gets pretty risque. This definitely skews older teen, young adult. Because it's, again, not hentai, but it's kind of bordering with it. And this is uncensored. I don't know if this was censored on television, but this centers around a sex education course in the high school, and the very, very attractive teacher responsible for it. It's hard to know if what transpires thereafter is meant to be titillating or meant to be provocative or meant to be cautionary. It might be none of the above. It might be all of the above. I'll leave it to certainly anime fans to tell me whether or not it's tasteful or tasteless, but it is unlike anything else I've ever seen. And then lastly, we've got 2 different releases of Prisma Illya here. That's Prisma, Prisma, Illya, Illya. There is Prisma Illya, Prisma Phantasm, and Prisma Illya Vow in the Snow. Now, if you are not immersed completely in this world already, and the complete title is Fate Khalid Liner Prisma Illya, but it just goes mostly by Prisma Illya because that's only the thing that non-Japanese speakers can easily pronounce and remember. There are 2 previous anime series based on this, the story of a young girl in school who discovers that she's a magician and a sorceress and all of her adventures that transpire thereafter. If you haven't followed the first 2 seasons, the first 2 series, none of this will make a whole lot of sense to you. The Prisma Phantasm is a new series, and Vow in the Snow is a feature film. Slightly different in the style of animation, actually quite beautiful and a little bit different in a really good way, which stitches this final season and series together with the previous two. But again, if you're not immersed in this, none of it will make a whole lot of sense. If you are, it's probably really fun. So I will leave that strictly to fans. Prisma Ilya Vow in the Snow, the movie, and Prisma Ilya Prisma Phantasm, the latest series in the long-running Prisma Ilya adventure of the young girl who is a sorceress. That's it for this week. Please tune in next week. We're going to try to load up on interviews with authors and some other things intermittent on weeks when we're not able to come together and to do some reviews of DVDs and Blu-rays. Meanwhile, please email us at gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com. Anything that you want to ask, anything you want to inquire about, or visit the Facebook pages both for DigiGods, which requires membership, just ask to join if you want, or cinegods.com, which can be followed by anyone. See you later.